Is Taylor coming in here? No, she's not coming.
Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give everybody 5 more minutes before we begin. Okay, Let's get this started. I just want to do some admin beforehand. I hope you can all hear me. If you can, could you give me a little thumbs up? Thank you. So for this presentation, we have disabled chat and the microphone. So all the questions, if you have any, please put it into the Q&A. We'll be addressing them at the end of the session. So now we're going to begin with Bella and our karakia.
Kia ora koutou. I'll kick us off with a karakia. So kia horo te marino, kia whakapapa po namo te moana. He huarahi mā tātou I te rangine, aroha atu, aroha mai. Tātou I e tātou katoa. Homie, huie, taikie. My name's Bella Whittle. I am the Systems Reporting Manager, and I'm joined by Ed Yong, who's Senior Technical Advisor, and Molly Carruthers, who is a Data and Insights Analyst. So we'll be talking about network environmental performance reporting. So many of you will have been involved in reporting to us last year on your network environmental performance, and thank you very much for all your input and responsiveness to our questions from last year. The data that you give us doesn't just go into a black hole. We process it, look at it, and we draw a lot of insights, and we package that all up into our network environmental performance report, which we're shortly to release. So you see a nice picture of the report that's actually coming out next week on Monday. And we do have separate webinars to release that report. So we have one which is kind of an overview of both reports. So we also have a drinking water oriented report. So we'll have a systems reports overview on the 14th of July. And then we have a more in-depth dive into our NEPR on the 23rd of July, and one that's more on our drinking water regulation report on the 24th of July. So please check out our website and feel free to sign up for those sessions. But for today, what we're going to focus on is the kind of how-to and the reporting for the reporting window for the 2024-25 financial year. That reporting window opens on the 1st of July and runs through to the end of September. So first up, we'll have Ed Yong, who's going to give you a bit of insight into some changes. Sorry, Molly is going to do a template to us, so some changes to the data collection template and what happens to your data, and then we'll have Ed talking about some changes to the guidance, followed by some questions at the end. So over to you, Molly.
Kia ora. So we just put together a little bit of a diagram explaining what we do with your data once you submit it to us. So we've got a pretty complex data engineering setup here that takes your email when you submit it to us. That template goes into our data engineering pipeline. We can test the formatting when you submit it, test everything to make sure that everything's in the correct place and that everything's filled out properly. Then through that Azure Data Factory pipeline, your data gets transformed into a flat file that we can import into our SQL database. In there, we can format everything. And then last year, we took all of the data out of our main database and put it through some transformation procedures in Python to have a look at the data quality, some formatting things, and some imputation where it was required. From there, we then take that sort of clean data and put that into Power BI, and we also did do some visualization and analysis in Python, and that is kind of the point where we use that clean data to inform the infographics and things and the in-text references in the published report.
I just got a comment saying that David Paz Lobon can't hear us. Can you still hear us there? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe David, there's some connection issues with you because everybody else seems to be able to hear. Okay, next slide.
This is just an example of last year. This is how we track your submissions through a dashboard. We can see the validation success and failures, and everyone will come up on there. And we also like to track the time period in which the submissions are completed. Last year, there was quite a lot after the end date. As you might remember, we opened up the submissions again. So this will be what we use again this year. So you'll be able to know that we're tracking everything that's coming in and what is maybe failing, and see if we can help you with that as well.
So I'll take over now. As Ella said before, my name is Ed Young. I am the Senior Technical Advisor, Asset Management here at the Water Services Authority, Taumata Arowai. So when and how to submit your report. So all the reports need to be submitted by the 30th of September. We don't want any late submissions this year, so please ensure that it gets in by then. There is a template that will be available towards June 1st. Please go to our website, download it, and fill it out. It's a new template that we're initiating this year, so Molly's going to go through a lot of the changes that might have been on the template so that all of you can see what it might look like. For the template, we only want one template per organization, so you don't need to fill out multiples of them. Please just do the one with both your wastewater and wastewater and drinking water results. And then if you could email them to the measures inbox, the email is there at measures@taumataarowai.govt.nz. That would be really appreciated. So next, we have made some minor changes to the guidance. We know that this will be a little bit challenging because the changes we want are going to be applied to this upcoming reporting period. So the 2024-2025, we want these changes to apply to this guidance. There isn't a lot of changes to the data collection itself, as in you didn't have to collect extra data. We're just doing a lot more manipulation of the data, so you're reporting it in a little bit of a different format as compared to what was in the original guidance. We're hoping this makes it a lot easier for everybody, and we've also reduced some of the measures so that it's easier to fill out. We've also gotten a small handful of network operators to review the data changes and the guidance change, and there hasn't been any adverse effects to it. So we think this is going to really improve the quality of data and will help you out by reducing the amount of work that you have to do. So a quick highlight of the thing we're going to talk about is changes to measures, main update to the guidance. Also, this year's the first year we're going to introduce more wastewater measures. So there's about 41 more measures that we're going to release. So this can be included. Oh yeah, they're not new because they were introduced last year. It's just that this year you have to report on them. Oh. I have some questions. Could you please ensure now new additions are made to the template after release? It's time consuming to load all the data collected into a new template, and there is a risk of mismatching data. Thanks in advance. Yes, we have made sure that the template is completely correct and it matches the guidance. So there's not going to be the process that we had last year where we're updating the template as we went along. This should be the one and done. Yeah. So now it's going to be a wall of text for all of you to enjoy. I'm going to go over the number of changes that we've made. So the first set of changes we have are the general changes to majority of the measures. So the first thing is we changed the numbering system so that it's a little bit more convenient for people. There was a lot of jumping around with the numbering system and it got confusing, so we rectified that. If you do need a guide to figure out what the old numbering is to the new numbering. We can provide it if necessary. We have also removed a lot of the comment sections out of the reporting thing, and we've replaced it with drop downs. So from the reports last year, we found sorry, our lights go off if we don't move. We found the most common answers and the generic answers, so it'll be a lot easier for it to respond instead of having to write out a whole bunch of comments. You can actually select a really easy drop down. We've also added a drop down for issues with providing information. So there are some measures that some of you might not be able to address or it is not applicable to you. A good example would be the for supplies don't need to do a fish passage study. So we've added a drop down that allows you to actually put that as not applicable or measure not applicable. So that way you don't have to actually respond to that one. Please don't use this as a way of getting out of all the measures. This is just for if the data is not available, you can't answer it or it's not there. We still want you to answer as much as possible. We've also changed the data confidence. So now instead of reporting a data confidence on each data point, we're actually reporting data confidence on the groups of measures. So there'll be an asset group or a compliance with consents group. Each one of that will have confidence associated with that. So we've eliminated a lot of every single row gets a confidence. Now we're going to go into the more specific changes with the measures. Warren has asked, when is the report date due? So we are expecting all the reports to be submitted to us by September 30th, 2025. So now on to the more specific modifications. So for measures DA5 and WA2, this references the length of pipe. We've actually dropped that down to the network level instead of putting it at the organization level. So now we're getting the total length of pipe for each network rather than each organization. This is pretty easy to do. We're hoping, because before we're just asking you to agglomerate all the numbers into one number. This one, you're just reporting it all individually. The next one is we are changing DEH1, DH2, WEH1, WEH2, which are all the methodologies for calculating network connections. We've updated a little bit here because we want to know actual physical connections. Before, you were estimating, say you had an apartment building, you have one connection into it, and then you have multiple, like say 10 or 15 units that are rated. We only want to know about that one connection. We don't care about the non-physical connections at all. We just want to know what connections are actually physically in the ground. Next one is the DH12. We're asking for the volume that you are exceeding the consent by. Last year, we did ask for the number of exceedances of the consents. This year, we want to know how much you're exceeding by, just to give a quantification of how big it is. Next one we are going to ask for is DH20. Previously, it was a little bit complicated because there were 3 waste streams. So that's backwash waste, sludge, and reject from ROs. This year, we want to separate that out because it was really hard to report one place because they all go to different places. So now we have 20.1, 20.2, and 20.3. That will help you answer for each different waste stream where it's disposed to. Next one are the methodologies for determining asset condition. We added a drop down so that we can figure out what methodology you're using to determine the asset condition. And again, with asset condition, we don't really necessarily need you to perform it every year. It's just your most recent asset condition assessment and the methodology used to calculate it. So that's what those measures are for. So we've added that one. DRE 2.2, we are now making it a requirement to add the UARL. It's just because to calculate the infrastructure leakage index, you do need the unavoidable annual real loss. So it's better to have that included. This way we can verify the data. For power generated on site, which is DRE14, we're changing it from gigajoules to kilowatt hours because there was some confusion, and Most of the time it is reported in kilowatt hours, so we're just trying to make it a little bit easier for everybody. One of the biggest problems we had last year was with the financial information. A lot of people flip-flop between using actual dollars and thousands of dollars. Well, this year we just made it really simple. Everyone just report the dollars. This way it'll make it a lot easier for you to deal with, so you don't have to divide everything by 1,000. Another change is we have added the gravity wastewater pipe lengths into the organizational level. It is pretty simple because a lot of people did have all this information as well. There wasn't a measure to put it in, so it kind of got shoved into comment section. That's why we want to put it in this year. Another change that we made is adding a measure to capture the average nominal flow into wastewater treatment plants. We know this is in conjunction with the next one, which is there was another one. Oh, yeah, sorry. And there's also a peak nominal flow, a peak average flow. This is because we asked for the ratio between peak and nominal. We just want to know the numbers to see what's causing it, how big they are, and all that. Next one is design standards for wastewater network. That's another drop down. Before it was a comment section. This time we can just select something really easily as a drop down. Another change is the percentage design to exceed during wet weather events for ingress into the networks. So last year's measure, the definition wasn't correct. We corrected it now. So now it's actually a percentage calculation with the calculation methodology written into it. So it's not onerous. It is pretty simple to do. We have also asked for how you determine criticality and what methodology. Again, this is a drop down, so it'll be pretty simple for everybody to do. Okay. Now I'll hand over to Molly to do the template tour.
Awesome. Cool. So as Ed alluded to a minute ago, we have made some changes in the guidance and the template around the data quality collection. So you'll see at the very bottom, you can see my mouse, no you can't. An example of how we're now changing the data confidence collection. It's at the performance measure level, not the individual measure level. So each block will have a confidence section in orange, and you can fill that out with the same options as last year, so that hasn't changed. We've also, as Ed mentioned, got a reason not available field, and the options for that will be data not available or measure not applicable. A new sheet has been added for feedback, so there's a few questions asking you how many hours you and everybody else at your organisation spent throughout this whole process of your submission, asking you if you found the webinars helpful, and asking you for any more kind of general feedback. So we would really appreciate you filling that out for us. It is technically optional, but that would be lovely. New measures for this year that were in the guidance last year but now need to be reported on are highlighted in yellow with a new measure little flag next to them. And at the bottom of each sheet, you'll see a block of 3 questions just above where we ask for any additional comments, just asking you how you've collected your data, how you verified your data, and how you've compiled that data. And that's just an example from the drinking water abstraction sheet there. We've also added a data dictionary that has information on the drinking water and wastewater measures, so you can look through that and it'll allow you to click back and forth between the definition and the measure input cell for your data. So I think we're just trying to make everything as easy for you as possible. And we appreciate the feedback that we have got on the template for this year. It was really valuable. Oh, yeah, this is just an overview of the sheets. Everything's the same except for that addition of the feedback sheet, which will be the last one there. And anything that's new for 2025 in the user guide or the little kind of blurbs at the top of each sheet is flagged in orange as new for 2025 as well. Yes, so we've got a additional comments field down the bottom of each sheet, as well as the questions about how you collected, compiled, and verified your data. And we also really encourage you to fill out that feedback sheet as much as you can, so we can take that feedback for next year as well.
So back to me. Now we're going to talk about the resources. We do have some resources available to people that need extra assistance. One of the resources is our website. Obviously, there's a link there for everybody to go to. It will actually have the updated guidance and the template in that link. So once they've been uploaded around July 1st, they would go there. Also, if you have any questions, we know there's a lot of changes that are happening. I did go through 3 pages of them. So anybody, anytime, you can please feel free to email us at Measures. We're here to help you as much as possible answer this. So just contact us if you run into any problems.
Just before, thank you so much, Molly and Ed. And just before we move on to questions and answers, there is something I'd just really like to emphasise for this year, please, and that is, we really would appreciate it if you can ensure that the data that is coming to us has been signed off at a senior level in your organisation. So that is something I know Ed touched on, but it's really important that that data that you provide us is like the final data, and it's been ideally verified at your level. I think that will prevent quite a bit of back and forth and questions on the data. I think that's something we're really asking for this year. So I just wanted to put a note of emphasis on that before we move to the next part of the webinar.
Okay. So FAQs, but first I'll answer Veronica's question. So with the change in D-EH1 means that D-RE4, median residential water consumption, liters per connection per day, will now consider physical connections. Yes, we want to compare like for like. So if we're talking about physical connections in the network, we have to also talk about median physical connections as well. So that may end up creating a higher median because there'll be less connections because you're not considering all the individual apartments anymore, but that is something that we want to do. Ben asked, if you have a right-way supplied by one connection at a street, the feed down the right of way is private and supplies 5 houses, is it one connection or 5? So what we did here is we're looking for your connections. Inside of the water loss calculation, we've actually asked if water loss is on the supplier side or network operator side, or if it's on the private side, which is the lateral side. So we really want you to have it on your connection. So once it hits that barrier where it turns into private property, you don't count those connections anymore. You don't count those water loss. If you can't separate it, that's fine. You can actually select it in the drop-down saying it does include the private loss as well. We just wanted to make sure that we're focusing really on network operator losses and not the supplier losses, because there's not really a lot of stuff you can do to incentivize them to fix it. So that's a thing that we're trying to move forward with. Another question from Ben is, are we talking group manager or manager of water and wastewater services for sign off? Ella?
Sorry. So at present, we don't specify that particularly. It may be in our guidance, but we're just saying at the moment senior level. Make sure that you have it signed off at what you see as the appropriate senior level in the organisation. But we can get back to you if there's any further specification around that. Look out for our new NEPR when it comes out next week, as it will actually include some recommendations for network operators, which might touch on some of this as well.
Okay, so Amy McSporin, WRE7 sludge treatment emissions. We operate a separate treatment plant at one of our wastewater treatment plants that is solely for a single trade waste producer, which produces a sludge product. Would the emission from the trade waste sludge be included in the report, as a carbon accounting guideline recognizes that emission for trade waste is outside of the scope of the guidelines? So ours is, if it's considered a separate plant, you're probably going to have to list it separately. We don't want to end up adding everything together. So that one, we actually, Amy, we'll probably talk about that offline, but I think right now we're going to try to make the trade waste plant maybe just a separate plant. So I'll contact you about that. So Amy Rakis, how is the data to be signed off, verified by a manager? Is there a place for this sign off in the template? There
probably be subject to your own internal process, but you could definitely note that in the feedback sheet.
Okay, next question. From David, it would be great if template updates were given more time to be reported on. It would also be helpful to have the opportunity to provide feedback on those changes. So we did do a minor consultation with some people in the industry about this, and we had given them opportunity to feedback. It wasn't a long time because it was due to the type timelines, but we have gotten some feedback.
And we did address that feedback as well.
Veronica says, I agree, changes to DEH1 changes a lot of other measures, and we can't compare with previous data. We understand it does make a little bit of a change for this. We're hoping that it just makes it a little bit more accurate, because we are trying to look at physical connections rather than the estimated ones due to apartment buildings. So that is going to be a little bit challenging. Hopefully it's not going to be too challenging. If it does become too challenging, then just send us an email and we can have a discussion about it. Any other questions? Yeah, we know these changes are a lot. And there might be a lot of problems that you might be running into because of them. Again, feel free to email us. We can work out the compromise. David asks, reporting at the boundary rather than at the rated connection might not be possible. Are there any alternatives? There is some alternatives that we can talk about. Again, just email us and we can make an arrangement. Georgina, is the new guidance measure relating to wastewater overflows consenting were removed? Does this mean that we are listing overflows consenting in WEH14? Yes, we're combining all the overflow, all the consents into 3 measures. So we're going to say, instead of just for the plant, it's going to be for the entire network. Before, it was a bit confusing when we were asking for the information and it applied to 2 different measures in the same column. This year, we're just saying, please list all the consents available for your entire network. It just makes it a little easier for everybody to look at. And it also means that you're not double handling information. Okay, I'll start moving through some of the FAQs. So first one is similar as last year. If you've decommissioned a plant halfway through the year, we want a snapshot of what the system is like at the end of the year for the reporting period. So if you've decommissioned it, you don't need to report about it. If you have low data confidence for one or more of the measures, we understand that you're going to have low data confidence. There is going to be a growing phase when we're reporting all this. So just put the confidence in. It doesn't matter if it's low or high. It's just there to say what is the auditability of the data. So I know this was a bit confusing for people in the past, and especially with the past reports. We did a consultation with Morpham Engineering. They talked to about 20 suppliers, and there was some confusion about understanding what the confidence actually meant. The confidence is specifically around how auditable the data is. It's not the personal confidence, it's how much work has been put in it to verify the information. So that's what that confidence is. And if it's low, it's low. It is not a witch hunt. We're not trying to go to get you. We just want to know what level of confidence is in the data that we get. Next one is, what if we have a data point that is not applicable? Again, we have that drop down, which we talked about before, so that you can actually select that it's not applicable. What if the meter is not directly adjacent to the abstraction point? So this is about measuring the flow. We don't really mind having the meter a little bit further away as long as that meter is actually identifying only the abstraction point and not multiple abstraction points, make it a little bit confusing. Or if it is doing that, you might be able to identify which one is going on at which time. That's fine. But it should have separate metering, separate piping, just so that you can identify how much volume is coming off each abstraction point. What is overflow reporting referring to? So we did have a question about who is getting the reports for the overflow. We want to know how you're internally reporting overflows. Is this a verbal? Is this a written? Or is it both or none? We just want to know how you're acknowledging that an overflow occurred. So there's a drop down for that. Next one, how should we count the number of connections when there's one physical connection, but there is one? So I already talked about this one earlier. Again, we are changing it a little bit. I did write down a methodology about how we're doing it. So we're looking at physical connections again, instead of having the estimation for number of connections in an apartment building. Unless the apartment building has an individual connection to every single one from the network, that would make it different. Then they all could count, but that generally doesn't happen. What if you have not completed condition assessment during the reporting period? So this is one of the questions that we had. We don't need you to complete a condition assessment every year. This is literally just put in the most up-to-date condition assessment that has been done so that we can have information. If it's 2 years old, it's fine. If it's 20 years old, maybe you should do a condition assessment, but we just want the data. Then a final FAQ. What if we have a bore source? Do we still need to respond to the measure about fifth passage? So I put that before. Again, please just put measure not applicable. A lot of people last year put in, yes, we have done an assessment because we're a bore. We don't need to. We don't need that. Please just put not applicable. It'll be fine. Are there any further questions? We have 26 minutes to help you. Anything? Nothing? Okay. Once again, if there are challenges that you're facing with the changes, feel free to contact us. Again, we can make a workaround this year. There are a lot of changes to these measures. We know it's going to be a little bit difficult to try to apply them to this year's reporting data. Hopefully next year will be a little easier. Oh, we do have a question. Can we get a copy of the slides? I believe so, sure. Yes. That shouldn't be a problem. But yes, again, we know it's going to be challenging. We know it's going to be difficult. Please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you. Because at the end of the day, we all want a good report. We all want to see how we're all performing. And we all want to know how New Zealand's doing. So we want to make sure it's the best as possible. If there are no more questions,
slides in the chat.
No, we'll
put them on the website.
Yeah, we'll put the slides on the website. Can TA establish a standardization for flow meter verification across the country? We are currently looking into it. It is going to potentially be a part of the network environmental design standards. It may not. Again, with the changes to Bill 3, we don't really know what might happen. So that's just something that we're going to have to work on once Bill 3 is released. Any more questions? More? Regarding the RA3 infrastructure leakage index, could you please ensure not to average LI for different supplies? Yes. Last year, we were trying to agglomerated up to an organizational network, an organizational level. So the averaging was a little bit funky. This year we're doing it differently. So it's better. We did do a weighted average just so that we could see what each network would be performing at, but they are separated as well. So it's not all averaged. They are individual.
Yep.
So the report's better this year. Any other questions? Oh, yes, and there is another thing that I want to address. We have talked about this CARL and UARL. There is a connection density issue around that, because if you have under 20 connections per kilometer of pipe, you're supposed to use kilometers, but if you have it over, you're supposed to use number of connections. We are addressing that. That is one of the reasons why we're asking for physical number of connections, and also the length of pipe at a network level, so that we can try to make that comparison a little bit better. This year, we didn't have that information, so we did everything in liters per connection per day. So yeah, so that's kind of making a little bit of, it might skew the data a little bit. But we acknowledge that, and I just want to let you know, this is one of the reasons why we're dropping it down to a network level for connections of pipe, so that it can have that better comparison between the different networks. Okay. Well, I guess that's it, if there's no more questions. We do have more webinars coming up, so if you do have any more questions, feel free to join the webinar. Again, feel free to email us. We're always available. Well, not always, but I mean, we're here to help. And I will hand off to Bella to do our closing karakia.
Kia ora, Ed. Thank you, Ed and Molly, and thank you all for joining us today. I'll close us off with a karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātea, kia mama, te ngako, te tinana, te wairua I te ara takatu. Koia rā e rongo whakairia ake ki runga, kia tina, huie taikie.
Hey, thanks everybody. Have a good day. Again, email us if you have anything.